Welcome to Foster Carolinas, connecting the Carolinas to voices of foster care.
LOT, the place I wanna be. Come and sit down, have a foster chat with me. Podcast bridging the gap with Mr. Peace.
Welcome to the Least of These podcast. I'm Tiffany Jothan, a Gaston County foster mom. And this is Travis Page. He's the DA, District Attorney in Gaston County. Can you tell us just a little bit about yourself, what you do? I can give some background in a second, but just like a short snippet of what you do here.
Sure. So thanks for having me, Tiffany. Very glad to be here. Huge fan of Least of These Carolinas and what the organization does, and I love what you do and your family. I think it's wonderful. And so I'm the district attorney here in Gaston County. I've been the DA for 3 years now, going back to August 2nd, 2021. When the previous DA retired, I was appointed by the governor to take his spot. And then I have to run every 4 years, just like any other politician. I don't like that label or thinking of myself in that way. But I ran in 2022, and so I'm serving a 4-year term. But the DA, by law, has a couple of different obligations. You think of DA, you think of the TV show Law and Order. Jack McCoy, the prosecutor.
It's not like that?
It can be. Yeah, it can be a lot. But the DA has two main responsibilities. One is to prosecute or move through the system the cases that all of our law enforcement charge. But then they also, by statute, are required and kind of obligated to advise law enforcement as well. But personally, I see the DA being a lot more to the community than just strictly criminal justice and law enforcement. I think we have the opportunity and the platform to be an advocate for policies that affect far greater folks than those just involved with our justice system, and maybe even look to identify ways in which we as a society can work to prevent crime from occurring. And so try to be proactive and creative and think outside of the box, but also be cognizant of the challenges in our community. And so I really, that's what I strive to be. And we all fall short, but each day that's what I'm trying to do.
Okay. Well, to give listeners a little bit of background, just about you personally, you were raised in Cherryville.
That's right.
Cherryville. You went to App State. You've been practicing law since 2009. And as you said, you've been serving as DA since 2021. You already went into how you and your staff prosecute criminal cases.
That's right.
But as far as foster care, you also represent the state in juvenile matters. So this is Least of These. So as we're talking about foster care, when it comes specifically to this type of care, what is your role and your level of involvement?
Right. So a lot of folks, when they think about foster care and the adoption process, they say, how in the world could the district attorney's office ever be involved in that, or how would they even know anything? And I did spend, prior to becoming DA, I spent 9 years in private practice, and I worked at a firm that did some family law, did some adoptions and name changes, and it was always cool to see those folks come in and out of the office, even though that wasn't one of my practice areas. But you are correct. I think the district attorney does have a role to play when it comes to adoption and reunification or any of those particular areas or arenas. And you hit the nail on the head. First and foremost, we represent the state of North Carolina in juvenile court. And it's not just when we also have a truancy program here in Gaston County. And so we're interacting with foster-involved youth, maybe because of things that they've done, but also because of maybe things their parents have done or things that they haven't done. We also are interacting with the foster and intersecting with them when it comes to parents who have done terrible things to their children, either intentionally through their own criminal conduct, abuse, but also through their neglect as well. And so one of the things when I first took office, you have a lot of folks coming at you and saying, hey, we want to work with you. And there's a lot of education, I feel like, that's directed towards you or was directed towards me, because I think there were a lot of folks that wanted to be heard that maybe hadn't been in the past. And one of the things, I had a lot of folks from the social work side come and say, hey, we want to educate you on ACEs and making courts a little more trauma informed, and also making sure that your prosecutors, your law enforcement kind of understand what ACEs are. And ACEs, the only time I'd ever heard ACEs before becoming a prosecutor was maybe in a card game.
Right.
Right.
So tell us what that is.
So ACEs are adverse childhood experiences, and it could be anything ranging from divorce or a parent being jailed or imprisoned or incarcerated. It could be going into the foster system. It could be abuse or being cursed or any of these things. All of these things are factors, when taken together, create some type of trauma for children. And it's important for us in what we do to have an understanding of that and try to connect these children to the resources that they need to make sure we can grow and develop them into blossoming adults and give them a future, and also to try to break some of these cycles that we've seen. And I remember I was an assistant DA in Gaston County back in 2009 and 2010, and 14 years later, I'm seeing children of some of the people that I was prosecuting back in 2009 and 2010, and that's where I think we really have an opportunity by getting involved early in the lives of children and trying to change the trajectory of their lives to where I don't see them other than maybe at the grocery store or out shopping or at the ball field or somewhere like that.
I'm going to stop that revolving door.
Right, exactly. And it comes from a place of love and compassion and just hoping to give a kid a chance at a better life than what their parents may have had.
Right. And then the theme of this current series that we're on right now is perspective. And you have a very unique perspective. Most people aren't a DA. So some in the foster world would say that the system is broken. That's something, we hear as foster parents and then just being out in the community. Do you think it's broken from where you sit in your office? Do you think it's broken, or do you think that's unfair to say?
I think broken is probably a little harsh, and I think it can certainly feel that way as you're going through the process. And it's taken forever for a home study to be done, or a court case keeps getting continued, or they're giving a mother or a father a second and third chance to try to reunify, and you're seeing the damage or the impact that it's having on a young child, not knowing, well, is this the month that I go back home to mom, or is this the month that I go home to dad? And so I think it's very easy to sit there and throw your hands in the air and say it's broken. Are there things that we can fix? Absolutely. There are limited resources that we're working with. There are limited funds available. And money makes the world go around, but also people. I mean, limited amount of social workers, limited amount of people willing to do as you've done and open your home and take a child in. And so those are all unique challenges. But at the end of the day, I don't want to call something broken, because there's a lot of folks still involved in it that care. And, I disagree with people for a living. I go into court and argue. It's one of the things I never thought that I would be good at, because I like to get along with folks. But we do it, and we do it well when we have to. But the thing is I'm used to disagreeing with people, but if I get a sense from a person that they care, I know I can work with that. And when I look through the system, I see a lot of folks, guardian ad litems, judges, social workers, that deep down they care. And maybe sometimes we have a tendency to get jaded and burn out. But at the end of the day, folks are there because they care. And that's what I tell the prosecutors in my office. Like, this is a calling. It's not just a job. And I feel like that's the same way social workers and judges and foster parents. I mean, you're called to this line of work to help folks. And I think we're called as Christians to act, not just believe. And so broken, no. Can it be made better? Yes. And we should always strive to make it better and reduce the time it takes for a home study, to increase the amount of folks that are in the foster pool, to increase the amount of resources that foster parents have, increase the quality of representation for lawyers who participate in adoptions. Yeah, we can certainly do better, and we should always strive. Even when we're good, let's be great.
So as a foster parent, and you're speaking to me, right, with your last answer, but it can sometimes feel like you are just a case number. You are just someone's job. You're a long-term babysitter. And for many of those fostering, ourselves included, the children in the home become family. It affects everything. It affects your daily routine, your vacations, your grocery store trips, other kids in the home, extended family, everything. And so the journey to fostering can be rewarding, also very challenging and humbling, just partly because of how long it can take to get things done, as you were talking about. So, and that's regardless of what the resolution is. But each case is unique. We're not going to pick apart all types of cases here. But in general, you touched on this why it takes so long to get things through. And you talked about some of the resources and maybe some of the funding. So you've already discussed like where we can do better.
Right.
What would it take to get there? What are some practical steps that you or I could do or other people in the community could do, whether you have an official title, whether you're just like maybe interested in foster care or not? Like, what are some things people can actually do to help make those things better?
So for listeners out there who maybe aren't involved in the justice system, open up your hearts, open up your wallets. That's that's probably the easiest and most simple answer, and pray on it and consider taking in a child into your home. We have 700 churches in Gaston County and close to 500 kids in foster care. I mean, I think it was around 450 maybe the last time that I saw. And every church congregation should be looking to foster and to bring a child into their church and to give them a stable home. And so I think, the faith community, we can certainly be more involved. I think, talking to your elected officials and telling them that, it's a priority. When I look at the folks that come through my courthouse, like every single one of them was a child at some point. And for whatever reason, they ended up on a different path. And let's make an investment in our children. Even if it's early education programs, early mentorship or community involvement. Look where you can get involved and plug in. And I'm doing what we joke about in the office is butterflying, bouncing back and forth. But I think take a look around in your community and see where the needs are and plug yourself in. Everybody has a God-given talent or a skill set. And maybe not everyone has a wallet to where they can open up and donate to some of these causes. But everyone does have time. And look how you can get involved and donate your time to either an organization like Least of These or Habitat, where you're looking to build stable homes for folks. There's so many opportunities in the community to get involved and try to focus on improving the homes and the families in this community. And I really do think everything starts at home, in the homes of when a kid grows up in. And that's getting back to ACEs and these childhood experiences. And I'm grateful there are folks like you who are willing to provide that. I think, one of the questions that was raised was, what would I want a child to know when they're coming into a home?
You're getting ahead of me here, but that's fine.
But I think the first thing, and it's just one word, it's love.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing. That's the biggest commandment that we're given, is to love one another. And for a child to feel love where they haven't heard that. We're in recovery court, and we got folks in recovery court and veterans court who have dealt with a lifetime of issues, mental health issues, substance use issues, and they've never heard the phrase "I love you" or "I'm proud of you." And I know that there are kids in our system right now that those words are a foreign language to them. And so for someone, for a period of time, to show them this is what it's like to be loved by a mother, this is what a father's love is like, this is what it's like to have a brother or sister who cares for you, there is no price or no value that you can put on that. I mean, it's extraordinary. And just for a kid to feel safe and to feel loved, like, we take that, every day. We, as a society, I think most folks in society take that for granted because our kids wake up feeling that way, and we never think that it could be any other way. But for so many other people, that is the reality. So many other kids, and so.
And you're a dad of two, correct? So it's probably hard to imagine your kids growing up not hearing "I love you" or having that care and that stability.
And that's probably where my job affects me the most, is as a father, when I get a call where something terrible has happened to a child, or I see the file come across my desk where a child's been abused or neglected or even worse. And those are the ones that hit me the hardest, and I carry with me the most. But yeah, my children, I think the role of district attorney is very important to the community, but the most important job that I will ever have in my life is to be a dad, to be a husband, to be a dad, and to give my kids a stable home to where, again, they feel loved, they feel safe. And I tuck them in bed at night, and I have to sing to them, and you don't want to hear me sing.
Me neither.
and they ask for funny stories or songs, but they fall asleep with either Mel or myself, usually right there with them, and just feeling safe and feeling loved. And I mean, that's what every kid should have.
Yeah, and they're at the center of each case. So, there are so many people involved in a case: the attorneys, the social workers, guardian ad litems, foster parents, biological parents. It might be a kinship case, but the kids, I feel like, they're the most vulnerable, and they're really possibly the most impacted.
They are. By
everything that's going on. I think it's a great answer, too, to how we can fix some of the issues or make the system better, because a lot of times you feel like a problem's so big, it's just overwhelming. You think, well, it's too bad. Like, that's just the way it is. It's more to take on than you can really handle. Yeah. But at least of these, we'll say everyone can do something. And it's true.
It's true.
You might be able to cook or open your home to a foster kid, or volunteer as a guardian ad litem, or, Habitat was great. I hadn't thought about that related to foster care, but even just supporting stable housing. So there is so much that people can do.
Absolutely. We have a phrase that we throw around a lot in the office, or I do with one of my admins, and it's, how do you eat an elephant?
Yeah.
One bite at a time. And we've got a huge issue and a huge challenge here in Gaston County especially, but we can do it one kid at a time. And if you think about it, when you change one kid's life, you have the ability to make a generational impact. I mean, that kid is going to be the top of a family tree at some point.
Yeah.
And so think about how many folks you have the ability to influence just by taking the time to change the life of one kid.
And you mentioned the faith community, and Least of These is a faith-based nonprofit, and you also grew up in a Christian home. You go to church with your family, and I noticed you do have a favorite verse.
I do.
Micah 6:8. I won't make you repeat it in case you forget a few words. You probably know it by heart, but it says, "And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God."
Yeah.
And so how does that verse shape your perspective? That is our theme. How does that shape your perspective on foster and kinship care.
Absolutely. So you're right. I did grow up in Cherryville. I grew up at the First Wesleyan Church of Cherryville, and we always sat on the seventh pew on the right-hand side of the pastor. You know how folks in Southern churches, they have, their assigned seat, it seems like a lot of times. And but Mom was very instrumental, and her parents, my Paul and Granny is what I called them. But they were very instrumental in giving me that kind of foundation and background, and my mom especially. And, she helped lead my dad to Christ as well. And I'll never forget that moment when he gave his life to Christ, and my brother and I are sitting there in the pew, and we see that. And it's such a powerful experience to see that firsthand as a kid, that kind of impact. But, my wife and I, we live in Belmont. We attend First Pres. Mm-hmm. We have a wonderful pastor, Sam Warner, who makes a mean chocolate chess pie.
I did not know that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's
it's worth a visit to First Pres just because of the pie. But getting back to the verse in Micah 6:8, so I break it down in three parts. And the first is to seek justice. And so justice can come in many forms. And in a certain situation, when you have a parent who, sexually assaults their child or exposes them to fentanyl, resulting in an overdose or a death, or that can be a hard line. That can be prison, and pushing to if the child survives, it pushing to where that kid can have a more stable home that's permanent, and pushing the criminal case in a direction where it's going to assist with that. But there's also to love mercy. And so I think you see that play out the most in my daily job, kind of in a recovery court, where we have folks, parents, fathers, and mothers, and we're working to get them clean. And they have records where, we could send them to prison, but instead we're bringing them in every 2 weeks. And I would encourage folks to come visit our recovery court. It meets the first week and the third week of every month up in Superior Court. But you see fathers and mothers become that role again and take ownership of that, take ownership of their lives and the sobriety, and in turn, be the parent that they should be. And so we've got folks that are celebrating over 100 days clean who hadn't been clean in 14 or 15 years. But they're doing that because we are showing them a little mercy. We're looking at them as more than just a record level and a criminal offense, and saying, all right. And that's what we have in North Carolina. We have a sentencing chart, and it goes by your record. It goes by the seriousness of the offense. And it's very easy to take a person and just process them and say, hey, you fall on this block in this chart, and this is what you're going to get. But I think with the recovery courts or veterans treatment court, we're looking to put a little more effort into figuring out, all right, who you are. You've indicated a willingness that you want to change. Well, let's work with you to change. And if you don't change, we'll hold you accountable. There's still accountability that has to be present, but there is mercy through giving them an opportunity to get clean and hopefully reunify with their children and restore that relationship. And then the last part, walking humbly with your God, that's realizing that for me, I'm not going to have the answers all the time. I need to listen to people. I need to listen to social workers and to judges and to foster moms and foster dads and say, all right, what can we do to make your experience better? What can we do differently? Where are we getting it wrong? Where are we getting it right? And so I think it's important for leaders in any kind of organization, whether it's public or private, to be humble enough to ask those questions and be willing to hear the sometimes tough criticism. Hey, you need to do a better job at this. But then not to get upset or angry, but to say, you're right, and let's do it together. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what that verse means to me as far as my daily life. And so I try to live it, and I try to push my office in that path to where that's what we're looking to do. That we're willing to listen to the community. We're willing to hold folks accountable and be tough when we need to be tough. when it comes to dealers, especially who are tearing apart families by putting drugs on the street. We need to be tough on those folks. We need to hold them accountable. But then the folks that desperately want to change their lives, we're all sinners before God, and He's shown us grace and mercy. And so there are folks that I think that we need to be mindful of what was given to us and be willing to give it and extend it to others. And I think there's a lot of dignity in folks getting sober and taking ownership of their lives, and I want that.
Yeah, that's great.
So,
I don't have any other questions for you. Do you want to add anything? Is there anything you want to say? Make sure people know or say anything about Least of These?
So absolutely. So, I first was introduced to Least of These after I took office. I hadn't heard anything, and so about Least of These until some folks that I was connected with started saying, "Hey, why don't you come with me to this event?" Or, and I think the annual event that we do in the spring, and so we've attended that. And I think Mel and I, the first time we went, and there was a lot of videos done showing what Least of These does in the community. And here I am in a room as the elected DA, and I'm sitting here crying my eyes out the entire time. Mel and I were sitting there wiping tears, but we were just so moved. And I've always had a soft spot for kids. And, when I was a cousin and my older cousins were having kids, I always wanted to get down and play. And I've always felt strongly for folks who can't really help themselves, and kids, elderly, handicapped, and so, but kids more than anything, I just want them to have a better life and a normal childhood, you know, where they don't have to worry about what they're eating or what they're sleeping on, or where they're sleeping, or where mom and dad is. Just, what are we going to play today? And so.
And earlier you said, be seen and be heard and be loved.
Mm-hmm.
3 extremely important values for these kids who are the most vulnerable.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Which, you have a very important role that, trickles down to a lot of these, Least of These, to a lot of the children. And so we appreciate what you do in your role and just being here today and sharing your perspective. And giving us some food for thought. I know I'm taking away some things to, process through. Mm-hmm. It can be easy to kind of have a one-track mind. You're like, this is my role and this is how I see things. But to also realize there are lots of other perspectives.
Yeah, there are a lot of perspectives and a lot of different folks that we haven't even tapped into that we can. And everyone has a role to play in making our community a stronger community.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Travis.
Thank you for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
All right,
so thank you.
Thanks.
Podcast bridging the gap.